Hello everybody and welcome to my review for the film Mudbound. This is a Netflix produced film. It's on Netflix for everyone to see. It's directed by Rees and has been creating a lot of Oscars/awards buzz. So is it worth all the hype? Let's talk about that. Talking about the things that I liked about Mudbound. I really enjoyed the performances in this film. Whether it be Carey Mulligan or Mary J. Blige, each person in the cast brings a very authentic and grounded performance to the screen. These are some of the best performances of 2017, and I can agree with that these are some excellent performances. And I think that the reason that these actors are able to give such great performances is because the script, which is an adapted screenplay from a book, is really able to flesh these characters out. And one of the strongest points of this movie in general is these characters. You know, they are very detailed, and I think that's partially because the screenplay is adapted from a book, and we really get to go on each character's personal journey and how it relates to the plot of this movie. And kind of what's going on in all the situations that they're going through. We really understand these characters, and we really get a long time to understand them because this movie clocks in at a 2-hour, 25-minute runtime almost. So this is a movie that really focuses on characters and characters' personal journeys and how they kind of relate and react to different situations, and you feel like you're watching real people in that period of time. And that is one of the strongest aspects of Mudbound, and something that honestly, yes, I can see that being something of Oscar type caliber, where these performances are so well done because these characters are so well detailed. And then you have these really strong performers who are giving these very natural, very real performances that really flesh out the movie. So I really enjoy the performances in this film, as well as the characters and the details that we get about these characters. One of the great things about Mudbound is that it is very authentic, and it's a very authentic period piece too. It's very detailed. It almost feels like it's been ripped out of pages of history. I mean, when we imagine this time period, I think that this movie exemplifies everything that we would imagine in that time period. And the situations that these characters go through feel very historically accurate and very detailed. Ultimately is the biggest thing, is that there's so many details that it's really easy to envision this movie and really get sucked in and be riveted by what's going on screen, not only because of great performances, but because of the amount of detail and specificity in this movie, because the situations that these characters go through are so specific and so detailed that it feels very authentic. Ultimately, I found myself incredibly underwhelmed by Mudbound, especially for all the hype and positivity that was coming for this film from the festival circuits especially. I found myself honestly a bit disappointed. Now, as I said, those were the things that I liked about the film. You know, the very authentic acting, the very specific situations that these characters go through. It all feels like a very real movie, but ultimately there isn't anything in this film that gives us anything beyond that. It's a very well set up historical piece of filmmaking. I think that it's very realistic, historical piece of filmmaking, but it also sets up all these really interesting themes, but the movie never amounts to anything. Not only is the plot kind of shoved towards the latter half of the movie, which isn't even my biggest concern with the movie, it's just that it brings up all these themes throughout the film and then doesn't lead them anywhere, and it kind of just leaves you hanging in midair where you have all these really well set up characters, but nothing ever comes out of them. And it's really sad to see that the movie goes down that route and kind of gets confused about what it really wants to say with these characters, because the characters are all there and they're great characters being played by phenomenal actors, but the movie doesn't know what it wants to do with itself. And by the end of the movie, it was kind of just meandering around a couple different themes, and it just couldn't choose one. It just kind of falls flat towards the end, and we get a movie that kind of feels confused about what it ultimately wants to be. And now, it might seem like my biggest concern with the film is that there isn't enough action necessarily. There isn't a lot of stuff that goes down or anything that happens, because a lot of this movie is really just set on a farm, and it's about characters and what they deal with on the farm. And that's not my concern, is not the level of action in the film. It's more that they didn't have enough juice left in the film to really make anything out of its really honestly thought-provoking themes of racism, of land ownership, and it really couldn't bring anything out of those themes. They just kind of mention them, and then the movie ends. And I feel like the movie lost its opportunity to say some important things about those themes and kind of how they almost relate to 2017. And I think that the film was almost there but really couldn't get there. And for me, that was very, very disappointing because you watch the story of these very detailed characters and you keep waiting for, these themes to come to something, or all of this kind of action even maybe to come to something. But the movie just ends and it kind of just leaves you like, well, now it's over and we didn't really get anything out of it. So I didn't get anything out of Mudbound except for those two things that I said, the performances and the detailed, history that it presented. So in that regard, I would say yes, Mudbound is a great, awards contender for that reason. But as a film, it's actually quite a bit of a failure because it doesn't do anything for the audience. It doesn't either give you enough action to be really engaged in the film, or it doesn't give you enough thought-provoking themes, and doesn't ultimately give you enough thought-provoking themes that amount to anything is my biggest concern. So for me, Mudbound was really a disappointment, especially coming in with so much, positive buzz about the film. And I think if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, where this movie has a really high score, you go down and see kind of the critics' reviews, and I think they share my sentiment for the most part, where they're saying it's a really great, snapshot of American history, but there isn't anything that the movie's able to do with its thematic messages. And that really frustrated me as an audience member, is seeing these, good setup for this, potential good setup for these great themes, and the movie just does nothing with them. So for me, I'm going to give Mudbound a B-. I was honestly a bit disappointed, especially for all the hype this film is getting. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go see it. I think it's a really interesting movie to watch because you really get a good sense of history and a good sense of these characters, but don't expect the movie to really amount to anything. So yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those great things, and I'll have more videos coming out to you guys soon.